Welcome to the KEA Method Podcast. I'm your host, KEA Tesseyman, and today we're talking about Pillar 2 of the KEA Method, emotions and creative currency. Let's dive in. When this topic comes up for me and my students in the dance studio, it's usually because we're trying to get them to tap into a story in their dance. And what happens is dancers really want to look at the framework and the body work, give me the steps. But what we want to do is we want to first tap into the why, the identification, the story. How do you relate to this character that we're trying to convey on stage? So here's the story for you. Show you where I came from with this. So over the course of my life, I've dealt with many personal struggles and setbacks, just as I'm sure you have. I remember when I was feeling like there was a load of guilt and shame or worry and doubt that I had been carrying with me around this one particular situation. So, as a single mom, I was a young single mom, 19 is when I had my son. And I just remember feeling this like less than feeling, like walking around town. I was trying really hard. I was putting myself out there as best I could to work as much as I could, either as a waitress in a restaurant, house cleaning, or teaching dance at the YMCA. It didn't matter how hard I tried, I still felt like I had this script or this story hanging over me. I sort of carried this shame and guilt around me like I was less than, or I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't a good enough mom, or I wasn't a good enough dance teacher. I just wasn't good enough at figuring out life, as a really young parent. And I kind of carried this shame and guilt with me like I was wearing a backpack full of rocks. So I kind of felt like this burdened sort of feeling. And it really held me back in any situation I walked into, whether it was engaging in relationships or, at work. Just I had such a hard time, like kind of standing up straight and feeling proud of myself. And it didn't seem like anything I was doing could help me. I just felt like I was carrying this weight with me everywhere I went. And I remember the first time I went into the studio, it was actually one of the first contemporary pieces I ever choreographed. It was the first year that I was running my business. It was 2010. And I just started my dance studio, Kinetic Energy Alive Dance. And I'd mainly been known as hip hop and old school funk. And, I'd loved jazz, but, having a license to create contemporary choreography was something that was never given to me by other people in the area who said, oh, you need to be professionally trained as a ballerina, or you need to have classical technique. Like, you're not allowed to do contemporary, you have to have this other background, which I didn't have. I had, no classical technique training. So it took me a long time to get to the place where, I had worked up the courage to just be like, if this is dance, if this movement's coming out of me, then it's supposed to be coming out of me. And so that was one of the reasons why starting my own business was so impactful, because I was taking agency over what I was doing with my art, what I was doing with my body, and, what kind of a voice did I want to create for the world for other students to hear. And so I still was carrying with me kind of this shadow that I wasn't good enough. And I remember the day that I heard the song "The Drought" by Horse Feathers. To this day, it's one of the most captivating pieces. So much of their music is, and the story is talking about, a drought. Is talking about these, the character in the song is like the sun beating down, the sweet relief of night when the moon comes out, like having these moments, these pauses and breaks from this like overbearing, like life-sucking weight of the blaring sun. And I remember when I heard that song, I went, "Oh my God, that's how I feel." But I was always waiting for the nighttime to come to give me that relief, and it felt like it never came. And I put on this music, and I got into the studio and had my rental hour, and it just came out. This choreography just came out of me, and I'd never choreographed like that before. I'd never given myself permission to choreograph like that before. And I just remember the first time I taught it to my students, and then we performed it on stage. And this woman came up to me and she said, "Oh my God, like, how, like, where did that come from?" And I said, I don't know, but it felt like it was just part of my story. And that is what I call today my creative currency, my bank of emotions. Instead of chopping up all of these experiences and laying them all out to say, man, look how bad I did there, or look how I failed there, or man, I can't believe I didn't see that one coming. That person really got the best of me, or what a fool I was. That's just so much like shame and guilt and like beating myself up, that I'm putting myself through. Now, instead, I have it in the bank. So I have this full bank of creative currency that I can draw on. And I have all of these deposits of experiences that at one point made me feel like I wasn't good enough, made me feel like I wasn't worthy of love or worthy of relationship or worthy of being treated with respect or kindness, or I wasn't worthy of someone's time. And now I take all of these experiences and I just deposit them into the bank. And today, when I go to create, maybe there's something that's happening in the world that's really calling, and there's a call in the studio amongst the dancers to talk about something that's relevant, something that's challenging for them that we can all universally relate to, that the world can relate to. And walking them through how I do this has just helped me to refine this process over and over. And that's why it's pillar 2 of the KEA method. We have to have our mindset in check before we get started. We have to make sure we're all in the same place. We have this nice, clear intention that we're going to create here today. Everyone who needs a hug has gotten a hug. Everyone who's talked about their day has done that. We're all set. We all feel good. Okay. Let's see if we can all pull from deep and see something in our own personal story that we can relate to that can make us all dance to this one piece of music for this one purpose, for this one story, this one character in a unified and authentic way. And that's the key. We have to be honest about it. We have to, pull from deep and say, here's this experience I had. And that's what kind of gives me like the right to dance this story. Now, everyone's experiences are different. So obviously, when we're trying to tell a universal story, it's, not all of us have had the same experiences. Not all of us have gone through the same trials and tribulations. But one of the things I like to tell my dancers is, pain is pain. We're not in the comparison business here. We're in the storytelling business. And you have pain because of this thing that happened, and you have pain because of this thing that happened. But we're both talking about what happens to you inside when you feel like your soul is ripped open by betrayal, or what's happening to you inside when you feel like you've let someone down. How can you define that? It might be different situations or different circumstances with different people at different times of your life. But do you have that experience? Can you understand this finite feeling of loss or sadness or grief or joy? And are you willing, here's the key, to pull that to the surface and let all of us see it? Let the choreographer see it. Let the other dancers see it. Let yourself witness it, witnessing the truth from your past. So that's just a little bit about the process that we go through before we engage in choreography, because I don't want to create a piece of choreography that everybody, hasn't gotten on board yet. I'm not going to force someone to do a dance that they're like, nope, I'm good. I've never, ever, ever done. I mean, my goldfish died. I'm not joking. I've actually heard that from someone before. They're like, I think my fish died, but pretty much everything's good. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this isn't the story that we do today, or maybe this isn't the story for you, but I don't force a story of grief or loss on someone who can't relate, because then not just that it's not going to be a good experience for them, right? They might then have to just go through the motions, and they might be a team player. They might be like, I've got the skills and tricks, but when they're on stage, the audience is going to know. The person in the audience that has felt grief and experienced loss is going to feel some sort of disconnect if 9 out of the 10 dancers are really speaking to them about this experience that they've gone through, and there's one who's a little bit checked out, right? So we'll get to that in a minute. So we know that we don't want emotions to drive the bus. We don't want our emotions to take over and run everything. And we know that when we get our mindset in line, then we can get our emotions in check. It doesn't mean stuffing your emotions down, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is we want to make sure that we have a system. So when a thought comes up, it's going to create the emotion. Let's be very clear here that our feelings are not facts and our feelings come from our thoughts. So if we're lying to ourselves, if we're getting upset about something that hasn't happened, you can definitely feel the emotion taking over your body. And some of the science around this is that like your body can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not when it's going through your mind, right? Like I can have one of the things I worked with a neuroscientist once was I was having these recurring dreams from some traumatic situations that had happened to me when I was younger. And every time I thought about it and replayed it in my mind, my palms started to sweat. My heart rate started to rise. I started to feel like I wanted to slouch and really cave in. And I started becoming, really emotionally upset. Now, the traumatic situation that happened 7, 8, 10 years ago. It wasn't happening in this moment. So why am I feeling the physiological responses to that situation I'm thinking about? Because our mind is so powerful. So just thinking about it, replaying the tape has such a huge, powerful effect that it's clearly shown that our emotions are being created by the thoughts we're having. And that our mind is very, very skilled at taking us down that rabbit hole and creating that physical emotion. It's really cool because it shows how much we can pull up when we need it. And that's the key here. That's the reason why this is pillar 2. So, number 1, we just have to make sure that we are keeping our emotions in check. So when we have a good mindset and we're not running away with a thought that isn't true, when we're doing our pause and our breathing and our talking the process and we're stepping back and we're not taking it too seriously and we're just really resetting to get into a good frame of mind, now we can help to control the emotions. Now, sometimes we might have hurt feelings or emotions or feelings from anything else happening in life, and I get that, but we don't have to let them run the show. That's the most important thing. Emotions always have a seat on the bus, but they are never the driver, okay? Unless you're on stage, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The next step here is to take stock of how your environment is contributing to your feelings. Let me break this down. Your environment is not just the birds and the bees around you. Your environment is the people you surround yourself with, the situations you put yourself into. It's everything you ingest. And I'm not just talking about food and hydration. I'm talking about what are you scrolling on your phone? What are you listening to? Are you always finding yourself a little irritable and negative after you go to have coffee with a certain group of friends? Or you get in a car with some people and you just feel like this negative tone with you on your way to a party. Or you're eating a meal with someone and there's some sort of energy there and you start getting a stomach ache. So our environment inside of our body is going to reflect what I believe the environment we're consuming. And the environment that we bring into any situation is our responsibility. It's our job to be accountable for what we contribute to other people's environment as well, which we talked about in the first pillar. One of the things I like to tell dancers is to do like a full body scan. Like let's go through our mind. What are we saying to ourselves? What have we consumed today? Let's take stock, right? So that's number 2. Let's take stock of our environment. Next, in order to access this creative currency or this bank of energy, you've got to make your bank of energy. And the way I do that is by taking inventory. Kind of like we took stock of our environment. Now we're going to go backwards and take stock of our experiences and the things that we've gone through, those things that we laid out that we used to feel ashamed or worried or stressed or hurt about or resentful about. Let's take that. Let's put that all on a list and let's deposit that into the bank, okay? One of the side benefits here of doing this is that if you have residual feelings that are left over, resentment, something that feels undone. This is a really nice fact-finding mission where you get to be equipped with knowledge of yourself, knowledge of maybe the things that you keep ignoring that need tending to. Um, Maybe you keep replaying an argument in your head that happened 5 years ago and you need to talk about it to get it out. But this is an incredible opportunity to not only clean up things from your life that need a little bit of tending, but you're going to find your story throughout this process. And when you know your story and you're equipped with those facts of yourself, whoo, you are ready to move. You are ready to create because then you can pull from any one of those pieces of your story and bring it authentically, genuinely, openly into a current piece of choreography. I remember once when I was talking about this step of pillar 2, and a student asked me, I was teaching at a college, and a student said, well, I don't have huge bouts of grief, but I have so many moments of success and joy and so many memories. And, can I use that? And I said, of course you can. That's your story. I feel like this part of the pillar really gives permission, it gives validation, it gives agency. Like, use your story, like, use your voice, like anything that you've gone through, it's what's made you you. So just embrace all of who you are and don't compare it to somebody else's story. So that's important to say. I feel like we're creating this tapestry, you know, laid out of all of the different fibers from our life that have made us who we are. And that's how I picture it when I watch dancers walk into the studio. I'm watching all these different cords of fiber pull together, and I'm seeing what can I use to weave and make this beautiful tapestry that's unique, that's exciting, that's authentic, and that we can own. The dancers in the studio in that one moment can own that, right? It gets me so excited. Like, it's hard for me not to move when I picture the choreography that I've been able to create. I never feel like I own it on my own because it's required people to show up and listen to the journey that inspired me to use this song and the reason why we're doing this, and let's all discuss what's happening in the world and is this relevant right now, and what can you relate to it, what can you identify. So when I look back at the long list of hundreds of pieces I've choreographed over, 24 years, I look up because I'm seeing all of the posters of shows I've produced. It's really special right now. Talking to you about this, I just think about each person's in the studio is bringing their uniqueness, you know, their humanness to it. And that's what I get to work with. That's what I get to weave together. And just some really cool things have come from that. So I'm just having a moment of feeling gratitude and just humility that how hmm, how special it is that I've been so entrusted. Like, I've earned that. I've worked on that. I've worked on being a good teacher. I've worked on being an instructor. I've put in my time traveling and training and in here, every day as, for 24 years with young people. But it never ceases to amaze me how fortunate I am that I've been entrusted with other people's stories. So I just want to take a minute to say that because that just kind of came up now. I'm like off script, but it felt felt like the right thing to share. I'm looking down at the notes that I have prepared, and I feel so much pride as an artist that this is, you know, the pathway I travel to create and what I lead other dancers down. And I'm so excited to share this, with a wider audience because maybe there's a dancer out there somewhere who's feeling disconnect from their body or from their movement or their dance experiences. And, you know, maybe this will be helpful for you. That's my hope, is that by sharing this, that you can find some sense of connection or validation that whatever you've gone through is your right. That's your creative currency. That's your bank that no one can take away from you. So I'm feeling very sentimental right now in this moment. So here are our takeaways from, this. Let's put them into a bite-sized container, right? So your mindset's in check. Your emotions are regulated. You're not, your emotions aren't driving the bus. You're walking into the studio. You feel present. You feel good. You've done your full body scan. Your environment's in check. And you know what's in your bank. You know what you can draw from. Now, when we draw from this in our storytelling, and I say storytelling because we're performing, we're getting on stage with this purpose to share a message that inspires other people, right? That to me is an act that to me is we're activating service, selflessness. Something shifts the dance for me, something shifts the performativeness for me when all of a sudden I'm like, wait, this isn't about me anymore. If I share of myself authentically and truthfully, there's one person in the audience who might watch me dance and go, oh my God, they're telling my story. And that's why I'm dancing, to make that connection, to be that lighthouse, to shine light onto somebody who needs to feel seen or heard today. And it's not about me anymore. It's not even about the person that went through the struggle. It's not even about the journey that I went through to fine tune my body as an athlete and to do my work in the studio as an artist and to work with my other dancers and the rehearsals and the 9 months it took to create the show. It's not even about that anymore, right? I get to do that. That's my vocation. That's the thing I get to use to process all that stuff from my past and to create something beautiful and retell it in a way that's useful to another person. Then I get on stage and it's like I have a mission. And I don't care about being perfect. I don't care about nailing a triple turn. It's nice when I do and it feels effortless, right? Don't get me wrong. But man, isn't it nice to get on stage and not worry about yourself? Isn't it nice to step up there in front of a full, packed auditorium and only think about them? That's the thought that makes me want to keep working. The little caveat here is if I'm not doing that, perfectionism is going to fail me when my toughness wears out. It's so impermanent. The rush, the dopamine, the success I feel if I think I'm perfect or someone says, oh, you did that perfectly, that's going to run out so fast. But I go to the gym and I do my 2-hour lifting routine. I do my meditation in the morning, my journaling. I get connected. I get centered. I get my head right. I get my emotions right. I have my affairs in line. I take care of myself. I make sure I'm fueled up in my body. I walk into the studio and I'm ready and available. That is a lot of work. I teach however many classes I teach that day. I'm dancing, I'm sweating, I'm creating, I'm running the studio. And then I go home and I've got my packed meal because I only have a little bit of time before I can eat and get ready for bed. If I was doing all of that just for those few little dopamine hits of being, those little reward centers of, oh, you did that perfectly, or, oh, thumbs up, I like that, that would wear out so fast, I wouldn't keep going. There's got to be something greater that's making me want to do all that work. And I'll tell you, for me, there's nothing in the world besides, of course, when I get to spend time with my son. But there's nothing in the world that can replace that feeling of the hair is prickling on the back of your neck and your eyes watering when you're listening to a song because it is making your soul move in a way that your thoughts couldn't. You're moving these muscles to change your thinking. And when we change our thinking, we're stepping out of self-reliance. We're stepping out of this really selfish, self-centered perspective of thinking. Move a muscle, change a thought isn't just, I'm going to move a muscle and I'm going to change my thinking so I can have a better day. For me, it's so much deeper. I'm moving these muscles so I can change this perspective. Like, we can't read the label from inside the jar. We've got to get out of the way. And when I do that, oh, it's like my skin feels like it's buzzing and I could just fly. And I'm on stage And I'm in the moment and I'm dancing this piece I worked on all year with my incredible students, and there's nothing like it. Andrew Huberman said, like like no cheap dopamine. Like any dopamine that's easy that you get without effort isn't good for you. And boy, isn't that right? The dopamine that I get, the rush, the serotonin, the oxytocin, the connection, like all the chemicals, the science is happening inside, baby. It is what I'm working so hard for. And it's not even like I'm working for that just so I can get that feeling. I know it's activated because I'm thinking about that one person out there who needs to who needs to hear a message. And and we're talking about identifying now, identifying with stories that are real. And I I'm going off script here, but thought I just had this memory of the first time it was a couple years ago in one of my Grit and Grace shows here in Midcoast, Maine, and I put a documentary in the show about mental health awareness. And my dancers here in the studio know my story of losing a friend to suicide and countless other experiences I've watched people struggle through with, addiction and mental illness. So it's really important. It's just part of, the work I create and I talk about. And I remember being really nervous to put this in the show. It's a community show. I've got kids in the show and their families are there and their grandparents are there. And but that feeling that like I've got to tell this story, I've got to do this, and I go through my pillars to make sure I'm doing it right and with integrity. And we created this documentary, and we had a great videographer and friend of mine, Sam Sosnowski, came into the studio and he filmed us and he edited this great documentary and worked with my dancers, and we put this on stage and we put it up in the show, and the documentary played. At the end of the documentary, it said, if I'm not going to get it perfectly right, but if you or anyone you know is struggling with depression or mental health, like please reach out and call a trusted friend, in the suicide hotline. And then we did the dance I found. And I just remember being like a little nervous that, I had really gone out and said what I believe on that kind of stage. That's my selfishness. That's my fear. That's my self-centered. Like, I don't want people to think I'm, not good or, shouldn't have done this in the show. And, just the fears of people's opinions. And I got a message on Instagram from a woman who had just lost her nephew. That was that one person. Sometimes we're dancing for someone and we don't know who they are. So it's like you have to leap and the net will appear, right? Like we know as dancers, we know we have to put our voice out there and our authentic story out there. And you can't do it if you're constantly waiting for the validation that says there's a place for it, this belongs. You got to find that inside. And we don't find that from outside people to reassure us that we're good on the inside, that this is worth telling. We've got to go into that creative currency, into that emotional bank of experiences. We can see it. If you look back, you can see along your way, you're a good person. You have something to offer. You have a message to share. You have a story to be told. Even if the people surrounding you right now are trying to keep you small and keep you quiet and keep your light dim, they are not the only people in the world. And maybe the struggle that you're encountering, if you're feeling a sense of nervousness to share or open up, who are you to say that that's not the precise struggle in that moment that you need to go through to be worth your salt and put your message out there? And that by going through that, you're going to achieve this new grace inside of yourself because you pushed through the grit, not because someone else told you to do it, not because someone said, a certain amount of validation, but because somewhere inside you just believed in yourself and your story. It's the truth. Just share the truth. That's what this is all about. And I just get so excited about it because it's the truth. To thine own self be true. Share your story, and you never know who you're going to inspire along the way. In fact, this is the same speech I gave myself before coming here today to record. I'm like, who wants to hear about this? When we go through this process, right, is where we build integrity. I often think about people weren't born evil, but they also weren't born, with all these morals and principles. They're grown. We have to build integrity through how we treat other people. And we treat other people based on how we treat ourselves. And we walk around with this environment full of feelings that are coming from our thinking. And it's up to us to be responsible, accountable, and stand up straight. Own it. Take responsibility, take your inventory. And when you go through that process, you're building this integrity. And you can see it in people in everyday life. You can see it in how you interact with people in the coffee shop, the grocery store, driving down the road. Especially, you can see it on stage. People can act like they've got this moral high ground, but you get a person in rush hour traffic who's got to get somewhere and whose life is too important to be running late for, and you see how they act. That's where their integrity is going to show. And I can own it. I've done a nice long meditation, had the perfect morning stretch session, had my coffee on my deck and listened to my birds, and then I get in my car and all of a sudden someone cuts me off and I want to, hey, I don't know what those words mumbled were, but all of my Boston's coming out now. So, the point here is, integrity is built not in all the moments when everyone's watching you and everything's easy. It's built in the moments when no one's watching you and it's the hardest. And you just have to believe in yourself. And I really feel like that kind of brings the full circle back to why this is pillar 2 of the KEA method. It's clearly the foundation, and we have to make sure our foundation's in place before we can build on it. So with that, I'll leave you to it. You have your checklist. Go take stock of your environment, do some inventory, work with your mindset, get your emotions in check, and get creating. What are you waiting for? Put your message out there. You never know who you can help. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, have a great day. You're beautiful and you're worth it.